Hello again, tarot friends. I thought, out of an abundance of free time, I thought maybe it would be kind of fun for me to start a series where we talk about how to read tarot cards for absolute beginners. Part of this is because the older I get, the less excited I am about reading out for people. And so like I've had this call, and I know that sounds woo woo and weird, but I have sort of had this call recently where I really think that what I want to be doing is sharing the knowledge about the cards more than sharing the knowledge on the cards. So that's what I'm trying to do. This is part of that. So what I wanted to talk about today is, okay, so you're a brand new tarot reader. You're absolutely ground zero. You just got your deck. The first thing I want you to think about is to look at every single card, right? Just take a look. Just go through them and look at them and notice your reaction and notice which cards, and I know I've already shuffled this deck, so some of them are reversed. Notice which cards you have a negative reaction to, which ones you really like, which ones are, that's kind of a sexy card, right? So think about which of these cards you sort of like the looks of, which ones you're like, oh yeah, I totally get that. Like, woo, that's a hot mama, right? So really go through and look at every single card. That is really your best way to get to learning your cards. And yours are going to be in order, and take a notice of the order that they're coming in. Again, this is a very well shuffled deck, so you're not going to see that. But really go through the cards and really just start looking at them. I'm not saying get deep study, just literally you bought 78 beautiful pieces of art. Enjoy your 78 beautiful pieces of art, okay? Now, what you want to do is to do a reading. The cards can't be in the same order they came in. So you have a couple of options. My favorite is honestly, and this is going to sound weird, this is what we call a swirl or mixing the deck. It's super fun. It brings out that inner child feel for me, where I am just, wee, right? And you just sort of spread this out and spread them out and spread them out. Maybe you make like a big old spiral, whatever you want to do. And then you pull them back into the semblance of something like a deck. Sorry, I'm a little off camera here. So you pull them back into something like a deck, and it's huge and it's messy, and your cards are absolutely mixed. If you have a situation where you've been doing a bunch of readings and you're just like, something's off, or you notice you keep getting the same cards, before you jump and say, oh my God, such and such a card is stalking me, do something like this, and then do a reading, and if that card shows up again, then you can be like, okay, that's really stalking me. Another thing you can do, so now my cards are super well mixed, right? And I'm going to have some inverted cards and some not inverted cards. Some people read with reversals, some people don't. I go by does the guidebook include reversals? Because that to me says that the author had, and the creator of the deck had the intent for there to be reversals read into this deck. And some of my decks don't do reversals. This one does. This, by the way, this is the Secrets Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. It is one of the decks that I don't read in public with this deck, because this deck can be kind of mean. And I know people don't think decks have personalities, or they think all that stuff is nonsense. I have found that to be true. Some of my decks have meaner voices than others. It's not abusive, but it is that person who will let zero shit slide. So now you got your deck and it's all mixed up, and we want to think about how we're going to shuffle. Here's the quick tip. You can swirl shuffle every time. You can overhand shuffle. I like to overhand shuffle a lot. Some people, if your hands are very small, you might overhand shuffle. I know Benabelle Wen overhand shuffles like this. This doesn't work for me for some reason, but she does. She makes it look good. Some people do, and you can tell by the curvature of this deck, I have done a riffle shuffle. For those of you who've never done it, you split your cards into two decks, and then you arch them. You use your index fingers to arch them, and then you do that, and then you bridge. That was the worst bridge ever. Sorry. And you can do that a couple times. That does cause a bowing in your deck. Let me show you my good old-fashioned Hanson Roberts deck. You see how bent that is. This is 20 years of riffle shuffling. So you may or may not want to riffle shuffle your deck. Be aware that it will cause that warping. Some people like it, some people don't. It's up to you. The older I get, the more I try to not riffle shuffle. So I've started overhand shuffling. I personally do not cut the deck. I know people who do. You're going to find your way. And this is what I'm going to tell you that is going to piss some people off if you're not woo-woo at all. The cards will figure it out. The cards will react to how you shuffle, and it will work out. There is no one right way to shuffle. I know somebody who's like, you've got to do this and you got to cut it into 3 decks and you have to do this and you flip one over. I have never had to do that. Now that works for them and that's great. We all have our little things. I like to do this overhand where I toss one back, right? So I'll do an overhand toss, right? Overhand toss. I don't know why. This is just what I started doing when I decided I wasn't going to riffle shuffle anymore. I don't know why. I don't know if it mixes the cards any better, but it's just what I started to do. Your cards will figure it out. Okay, so you can riffle shuffle, you can overhand shuffle, you can swirl. There is no right or wrong way to shuffle. What I will say is be consistent because the cards will figure it out. So now I've got my deck, okay? And also, I did want to talk about, before I got into that, I made notes for myself. I did want to talk about this. Some people talk a lot about jumpers, and I cannot make one happen. I almost made one happen. I cannot easily make one happen, but I want to show you something. I don't believe, that's not a jumper. Okay, that's good. That's not a jumper. If a card falls out of the deck because you are being a klutz and a lazy shuffler, that is not a jumper. I have had jumpers in my life. That's not a jumper. That's klutzy shuffling. I have had jumpers in my life where I am doing what I'm doing right now on camera and a card will go this way. It will literally shoot out this way. So not at all the way I'm doing. That's a jumper, okay? There's this big thing, and the reason I wanted to bring it up because this is the new Special Susie thing that I'm seeing in the tarot community. See, about 10 years ago, there was this big movement in the tarot community from the light workers who were really like the toxic positivity crew. And what they would do is they would go through their tarot decks and they'd remove any cards they don't like. So they'd get rid of the devil, they'd get rid of the tower. One woman posted in the Facebook group, and I think she's the reason I got banned from that group. She was like, I took all of the swords, the entire suit of swords out of my deck because, quote, I don't want that negativity in my life. If only it were that easy, right? We'd all be peeling all the swords out of our lives and nothing bad would ever happen to us. That's not how life works, right? But what I saw during this was there was this competition among these women to try to sound more pure and more light workery than everybody else. And so it made them feel special that they couldn't even look at the devil card. Oh, I'm too sensitive for the devil card. It made them feel special. I don't like it. I don't buy that. And what I'm noticing these days is a lot of people are doing the same thing with jumpers. Oh, I only read jumpers. Oh, I only read. No, I have had, if I'm generous, I've had 5 legitimate jumpers in my life and I have been reading for 20 years. Okay. If you're getting jumpers, I'm not saying it's not possible, but if you're getting 10, 15 jumping cards every time you're shuffling, I think you're a garbage shuffler. However, remember what I said earlier, the deck, the cards figure out how you draw cards. So the cards will work. But there's nothing special about, now I'm trying to fake it. Oh, look, and say, I'm going to read those. These are not spiritually more deep than if I just said, all right, I'm just going to lay cards. There's nothing more spiritually deep. Do not buy into anything that makes you feel bad if you don't have some sort of magical, mystical experience. You can draw cards. I laid cards. I slung cards for about 10 years before I had my first jumper, like at all. And ironically, it was to predict my mother's death. A pretty big event, right? I'm not going to get that when I'm asking, so what's lunch today going to be like? It was a pretty big one and one that I was not actually reading for. It was my cards going, yo. So I'm not saying people who only read jumpers are wrong or that they're pretentious or anything, but just don't let them make you feel that you are not a good card reader because you're not having jumpers. And be aware that a bunch of them are playing that Special Susie game where they're trying to be more enlightened and more mystical than you because they have jumpers. it's nonsense. If that's how they read, that's fine. Do not let them judge you, because how light workery is that to judge everybody else as less talented and less spoopy as they are? I'm not into it. All right. So I wanted to talk about, the other thing I wanted to talk about was a lot of tarot books will tell you, I'm laughing because this is my significator. And I love the Queen of Swords in this deck. A lot of people will tell you, oh, you want to learn how to read tarot? Draw a card every day. Every morning, get your cards out, shuffle it, draw that, and that's your card for the day. And I think this is really hard. I don't like this idea using one card as divination. I really don't. I know that's against every single tarot book out there, because there's only so much I can learn. And what if I draw the Tower? I'm going to be waiting all day. I'm going to be living in a state of anxiety, waiting for like my house to fall down or something, you know? And I don't want to, when I go to bed at the end of the day and my house is still fine, thank God, I'm going to be like, well, the Tower tarot card, ooh, it said disaster and nothing disastrous happened. Maybe tarot isn't real. We don't know. No. We're not playing that game. So that's one reason I don't like this as this is your card of the day, as the idea of a divination or a reading for the day. I do like the idea of drawing a card for two reasons. One of them, it's a flashcard, and I can go dig through all of my tarot books. I can use a little white book. I don't remember where the little white book for this went. I can use my little white book. I can use any of my resources about tarot card meanings, and I can show you those in a separate video. I can look it up in various guidebooks. If I have 3 decks, I can look the same card up in all 3 decks and guidebooks. Like I have this one here. This is from the Mystical Cats deck. I might look up and say, what do they say about the Queen of Swords, right? And I can use it as a study, like a flashcard, right? I can sit there and study the card. Does not mean that this is predicting anything about the day, right? So I don't want to necessarily think about it as a predictor, but I can think about it as a flashcard. Another reason you might want to use a 1-card draw is when we really pay attention to a card in our deck and we really dive into the symbolism, it is a great intuitive tool. So I might look at this card and I see a woman with long black hair and a long black dress and these sculptured pillars. Am I going to see, or this checkerboard floor with this sort of interesting pattern? Am I going to see any of these today? So if I do that, looking for elements of the card in the world around me, not the meaning of the card, but the elements of the card in the world around me, is going to help start honing my intuition, because intuition requires that attention to detail. Now it's August, I'm not likely to see a woman in a full-on black dress. I love the sleeves on that dress. I love that whole dress. I love this whole thing. But am I going to see that? Maybe not. But again, this is how we start honing our intuition. If we want to become good readers, this is a great way to start honing our intuition. So if I draw, say, the Knight of Wands, unlikely I'm going to see a dude in green riding a brown horse holding a stick. Am I going to see somebody wearing green? Am I going to see somebody wearing an interesting hat? Am I going to see a stick? Like, really start to notice where I might see these in the real world. This is going to help build our intuition. I'm going to put these cards aside. Now, what you want to do, so that's great for the flashcard thing, but I'm going to say, again, unpopular opinion time, it is a big jump to go from that to reading tarot. So I'm going to say step number 2 is a 2-card draw, okay? Now, I'm a linguist by trade, and one of the things we know in linguists when we talk about how infants learn language is we have the one-word phase, where they're trying to have one word carry the whole meaning of the utterance, and it can be very confusing. Does mama mean mom, come pick me up? Does it mean I'm hungry? Does it mean I'm tired? Does it mean that thing is scaring me? I don't know. Children very swiftly move on to the 2-word phase. And that's what I was modeling this on, because now I've got 2 cards. And now I can sit there and say, all right, tarot reading is reading. And so it's looking at these. There are a lot of boobs in this deck. I'm sorry if you're sensitive to boobs. So I can look and I can start making a connection. And one thing I might do is I might take a look at these and say, well, what happens if I reverse the order? What happens if I do this? So I have a 4 of wands, which is generally the card. She is cutting loose. She's letting her hair down. She's letting it all hang out. She is for the streets, as they say. So she's having a party. She is ready to go. And then you have these sorts of, this guy's face, we have these guys. Why are they celebrating? How is that connected to this, right? How are these two things connected? She's outside, they're inside. Why are they in different spaces, right? So you start asking yourself those questions. You start noticing the detail and then starting asking the questions, how does this lead to this? And then we start thinking, okay, now we are building something up. So this might be a successful concert or event that the people, the record company label is really celebrating. You have these guys going, we did it. We did a good job. If I reverse the order, and this is something I always recommend you do, I borrowed this from Mary Greer. She's always like, mix up the order of the cards, see what happens. We have these guys who are bargaining, and now it looks like she's setting herself free. She is just like, oh, look at these dudes in the shady, smoke-filled back rooms. She is out of there. She is shedding her skin. They're dark, and she's getting rid of this dark garment. So when I start putting two cards together, I start creating a story, and that is tarot reading. Now, there's one level next to that, which I'm going to talk about in another video, but I'll give you a spoiler here. It's having a spread where the cards have meanings. But I want you guys to sort of think about that, crack open your deck, grab a new deck, who knows, and really sort of think about, do I want to do a one-card sort of flashcard approach? Maybe if that's no longer working for me, maybe I could try this and view this as an opportunity to play. Just sort of look and say, I'm not doing a reading. I don't know who this is about. I don't know what this is about. I'm not trying to make it about anybody or anything. I'm just saying, how could I create a story that connects these two images, these two things that are happening on this card? I keep looking at the wood, this beautiful growing wood, and then how it's all been put into order. So we have a contrast. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep going back and forth on this, but the more you look at the cards and you notice these similarities and you notice these differences, that is a crucial fundamental step to reading. And this is a really fun and easy way to do that. Again, we're not predicting your day. We're not doing anything like that. We are just going to be exploring the skill of building connections between what we see in the cards. All right, so give it a try. I'm still new at this YouTube thing, so I hope you're a little patient with me. Hopefully the images are getting a little bit better. So like, subscribe, whatever I'm supposed to say as a YouTuber. And I'll see you in a couple days when I have another video for you.